Good afternoon. My name is Parisa Vania, and I am the business whisperer of Sixth Sense Strategy. We're going to be talking about all things badassery in just a second. I have two agenda items really quick before we actually get into my agenda. The first agenda item is if you've had the chance to take the quiz and perhaps read the results, keep the results in the back of your mind as we talk today and be in conversation today. Check in with yourself to see how the results land with you as we have this conversation. So that's item number one. Item 1A is that Gracie was kind enough to let me know that my calendar scheduling link in the results is broken for some reason. So thank you, Gracie, for letting me know. If there's any questions you might have about the quiz, I'm happy to make myself available and share my email address and whatnot. Then the second agenda item is for the purpose of this talk today, I am going to split this room. Let's split this room like through here. So this side of the cookie deliciousness will be one group. This side of the cookie deliciousness will be the other group. And so anytime I point to you all, I would like for you all to say, see it. And then anytime I point to you all, I want you all to say, be it. So let's practice. See it, be it. See it, be it. Great. You all are a delight and awesome at following directions. So I'm so appreciative. So let's begin the beginning. Let us tap into badassery and ask ourselves the question, what might Beyoncé do? What are some words that you think of that describe Beyoncé when you hear about a performance of hers, or you see a video of her performing, or you've seen an interview of her, or you see a picture like this of her? What might be a word? Yes, Jen. Fierce. Thank you. Confident. Thank you. Own it. Is that what you said? Excellent. Thank you. What other words might describe her? Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Unstoppable. Those are all amazing words. Please keep these words in mind for the rest of the conversation today and check in with yourself as we are talking about how it is that we tap into your badassery. I love this sentence behind me. If I could only have one sentence to describe badasses, it would be this one. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. The reason why I think this best encapsulates modern badasses is that they don't wait for life to happen to them. They happen to life. They have beautiful, audacious, amazing things in their mind's eye, and they are compelled to bring these things to life. It is almost like a sacred calling for badasses to bring what's in their mind's eye to life, because they know the positive impact it will have on all of us when these things actually come to life. So why do I love badasses as much as I do? Badasses are change agents. They're pattern interrupters. They are disruptors. They are visionaries. They are the types of people that go 80 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone without sometimes checking to see if people are strapped in for the ride or interested in the destination. They are the type of people to say, why not, instead of why. And when someone tells them that something sounds impossible, they kind of smirk and say, just watch me. So what are some examples of badasses? Steve Jobs, Serena Williams, Thomas Edison, and yes, Beyoncé. All of them across the realm of technology, science, sport, and culture have had outsized impact on all of us. Now, I want to be clear. You don't have to like Steve Jobs. You might love your Android and hate all things iPhone and Mac. You don't have to like Serena Williams. You don't have to like Beyoncé, and yet you can still recognize the impact they've had on all of us. So we know about these badasses, we know about these visionaries and change agents. In my work, I worry about the ones we'll never meet. I worry about the Serena Williams we might not meet. I worry about the Beyoncé we might not meet. I worry about the Steve Jobs or the Thomas Edison we might not meet because someone sidelined or silenced them, or they played a smaller game and ended up silencing or sidelining themselves. What is the opportunity cost for not meeting a future Serena Williams? What is the opportunity cost of not meeting a future Steve Jobs or a Thomas Edison or a Beyoncé? It's like setting fire to money and possibility when we don't meet these people. And so why is it that they might get silenced or sidelined? Well, in as much as I love badasses, sometimes they kind of have a dark side. You might believe that they are bulls in china shops. You might believe that they are too much, too bold, too brash, too colorful, just too overwhelming, just too disruptive for the rooms and the spaces they might be occupying. And you might use a word that means the same thing as donkey's rear to describe them. But there's great news. Badasses can be seen, heard, understood, respected, and valued for who they are. They can belong in a room without having to blend in the room. They can go from being seen as too much to exactly what we need. They can be a functional, valued, and valuable part of any team. And the reason why I know this is true is that I have a nationwide practice coaching and advising badasses as well as those who lead badasses. And I also wrote the book, so I have the receipts. So I'm curious, by a show of hands, when you see a badass as I've described them, are you admiring? Do you say, oh my gosh, I'd never be able to go on a stadium tour like that. I'd have stage fright. Who might be admiring of a badass? Great. Who might be awestruck? Like, how did they do that? Show of hands. Yeah, exactly. You might be dumbfounded. How did they think of that? Who might be dumbfounded? And then there's also wistful. I wish I could be like that. I wish I could take risks like that. Yeah, me too. Thank you for your honesty. So you're an excellent company. It turns out Beyoncé felt the exact same way as you all did. In the beginning part of her solo career, when she stepped away formally from Destiny's Child, she felt like she needed to create a performance persona, an alter ego called Sasha Fierce, because she felt that Sasha Fierce was the performer. She felt like Sasha Fierce was the innovator. She felt like Sasha Fierce was the bold person that she did not perceive herself to be. But as her career progressed, it occurred to her, no, I've always been that person. I am that person. And I would submit to all of you that you all have your own brand of Sasha Fierce too. See it? Be it. See it? Be it. Great. Glad I checked in with you. So you might be modern badass curious. You might say, gosh, there are so many ugly pieces of china in my professional china shop, and I would love breaking some of these. Or you might say, how can I be bolder as a leader? How might I take a couple more risks as a leader? You might also ask yourself, how can I speak truth to power with power? How can I be more effective at using my voice as a leader? I've got you. You've always had it in you. every single person in this room has had your own version of badassery. You had this version of badassery, your branded version of badassery in you as children until such time an adult or some authority figure told you it wasn't appropriate, told you that there was only one way of being, told you that it was time to conform, told you that you couldn't be in the best expression of yourself, told you to be vanilla because being vanilla is what gets you ahead in life. I believe that every single one of you has your own brand of badassery waiting to come out, but you all have to believe it too. So I'm going to ignite your belief in your badassery. And there are two jobs that I have, and hopefully you'll come along with me on this journey. One is embracing creative disruption. And then the second thing is remembering the joy of play. Sound good? Y'all with me? Excellent. Okay, great. So let's go back to Beyoncé. A little over 10 years ago, at the stroke of midnight, December 13th, 2013, she released a self-titled album. Now, this was radical in the sense that it was a complete surprise. And not only did she drop this album with 14 singles, she had music videos, a visual album that accompanied the 14 singles. It was a complete surprise, pandemonium, all the things, and virtually overnight on iTunes, the album hits #1 in over 90 countries. That's astonishing. And then within a couple of days, it hits #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Like gobsmacking. And why was this such a big deal? The reason why this was such a big deal is that there was no advanced PR. She didn't do any appearances. There were no singles released to the radio. There was no music videos with these singles released to the radio. There was no cross-brand promotion. And remember, back in the day, 10 years ago, people were still buying CDs from Target and Walmart. There were no CDs for sale at Target and Walmart. So she did an end run around the retail industry. And then she did an end run around radio. And she did an end run around the music industry and how the music industry liked to operate. It's astonishing. Now, artists today drop surprise albums all the time, but she was the one that created the model for doing that successfully. So she was a phenomenal leader in setting the stage for this. And so she was a leader in two ways. One is that she established agency as a professional, and she established agency for herself as a creative. She decided how the album was going to be released. She decided how the album was going to be experienced. She decided to release all of the music videos at the same time. It wasn't the record label, and the radio didn't know about it, and as I said, retail didn't know about it. She had agency. She had power, which to that point, unheard of in the music business. You are a commodity. You were normally a commodity if you were a performer, an artist in the music business. So that's one form of agency that she created. The second form of agency she created is that she allowed her fans to crowdsource which singles were going to be popular. So if you release 14 singles at the same time and your fans are all listening to it in real time and sharing their reactions on social media, there will be singles that rise to the top that become the favorites. And those were the ones that got airplay. One of them, notably, Drunk in Love. That was not something that Beyoncé decided. That was something that the fans decided would get the airplay and the popularity. Fans before had to accept whatever the music industry was going to feed to them. Fans before had to accept what MTV and radio was going to feed to them. They got to tell big business what was going to be true for them. Gobsmacking. And then the last piece, her being a trailblazer, is that she showed every other artist in the music business that it was okay to challenge archaic business practices. That just because it was done that way a bajillion times before doesn't mean that it had to be true in perpetuity. And so since then, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a ton of artists that have dropped surprise albums. So not only was she the model for the music business, but if we think about it, a model for the rest of us. What are current rules that we have in our own prospective businesses that we think are sacred cows? Turns out there aren't that many. There are things that we could break if we allowed ourselves to do so. Thank you. Yeah, so you're thinking I'm not Beyoncé. Yeah, I'm not Beyoncé either. And I would submit to you that every single one of you in this room have done something risky, bold, something that scared you, something that made you think, OMG, what was I thinking? Or OMG, what am I thinking? It could be that stretch job that you applied for and you got. It could be the business you started. It could be the business you sold. It could be firing a client. It could be pitching the largest piece of client business yet and winning it. It could also be you going on that first date with the love of your life. Every single one of you has done it. So I'm curious, popcorn style, what's been a risky move that you may have taken in your life, and what have you learned from making that risky move? Leaving your previous career. Say more, please.
So I used to work for the federal government, and everyone knows once you work for the federal government, you never leave until they kick you out when you retire. So it was just not in me to do that anymore. I left. It was the scariest thing ever. You leave the great benefits, retirement, security, everything, and it has been the best decision ever. I look back and I'm like, how did I not do that sooner? So just not missing family life, not missing what I wanted. Everything I wanted, I received after I left that career path.
And so how did you feel as you gave yourself permission to say deuces to the federal government?
Well, I cried to my husband first. I was like, I've worked my whole life thinking this was my career choice, and, you know, it wasn't. And then I was like, that's it. I'm out. It was so liberating walking out those doors, just knowing that I never had to do it again. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Bravo. Bravo. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So what's next? A lot of people believe that it takes confidence to make a bold move. Nope, not true. It's courage and the willingness to play. Confidence is always a lagging indicator of courage and a willingness to play. There was no way Beyoncé knew that by making that big, bold, grand experiment that it was going to go like gangbusters. It could have gone pear-shaped. And yet she had the courage to play and experiment and do it anyway. And my invitation to you all today is let us remember the courage to play as well. So for badasses, play is a key ingredient. Every single badass I know that I've worked with loves standing in front of a whiteboard to say, what's the opportunity here? Or they ask, what's possible? They also ask, what would happen if we created blank? Or what if we tried blank? And my personal favorite that I say all the time, legit, who's going to take me to jail for asking a question? That is legit my favorite thing to ask. So let's talk about play for a second. This book, Modern Badass Tales from the Leadership Front, was 100% born from play. Every single page, any piece of IP that's in there, any word that's in there is because I chose to play, because I fell into play. Now, let's step into the way back machine, into the before times. It's late 2019, early 2020. And by that point, I had this idea about modern badasses. I was clear that they were my people, and I was also clear that I was going to have a successful practice coaching and advising them. But there was one tiny problem. I didn't want to talk about it. I was scared. I said, who am I to believe that this is possible for me? I was worried that if I published, if I wrote in a blog, if I wrote an article, or if I posted on LinkedIn, if I posted something on Instagram, that nice people like you would say, oh my God, you are an idiot. What are you thinking? This is the worst piece of tripe I've ever read. There's no value to this. Stay in your lane, and any other horrible thing that the trolls in my mind were inventing that nice people like you would say back to me if I were to publish something. So I said this to my coach. I told him what my conundrum was, and he laughed and he said, okay, well, I'm issuing you a writing challenge. So that's literally how I reacted. And he said, for all of 2020, you have to write every day. And not only do you have to write every day, you have to publish every day. I'm not attached to where you publish. You have to publish every day. And I'm processing this, and I said, but Rich, if I do that, it's going to suck. And he said, yeah, it will suck, and it will suck for a long time. And that's the point. I want you to be in the practice of creation and not so much attached to the output. So I accepted the challenge because I don't like to back down from challenges, being the badass that I am. And so I start to write. I write, I post, and then I start having fun. And I was in the middle of having fun before I realized I was having fun. And then by the time spring 2021 rolls around, I'm like, well, I'm having a lot of fun writing. I think it's time for me to produce videos and post those on LinkedIn and talk about badasses as well. So for the past almost 3 years, every Friday on LinkedIn, I've posted a video. And that was where the duh moment came for me, is I so fell in love with the art of creation that I released myself from imposter syndrome. I so fell in love with the art of experimentation. I released myself from the possibility of judgment from nice people like you. I knew that there would be judgment, and I didn't have an emotional attachment to it. That I fell in love with experimentation. I fell in love with play. And I'm telling you that if it's possible for me, it's possible for all of you as well. Excellent. So kids are awesome at playing. They are not tied to perfection. They are not trying to be the valedictorian of art class. They are not trying to be the CEO of Imagination Inc. The depth of their creativity is what they show us all the time. So when a kindergartner comes home from school with 4 blobs on a piece of paper and you ask, oh, honey, sweetie, this is great. What is this? And they say, oh, it's our family. You're like, sure, I'm going to put this on the refrigerator. And they believe that it really is a portrait of the family. And it is. That is what is true for them. And so what's beautiful about children is they know, without being able to articulate it, is that there is magic in experimentation, that there is joy in play and experimentation. And so the beauty, in addition to that, is that not only are they willing to try and experiment, they are willing to fail, unlike us. Let's watch. I love this video. I can watch this video 9 bajillion times over and not get tired of it. Now, what you all don't know is, and I realize the volume was a little low, what you all don't know is that the language they're speaking is Persian. I am a Persian speaker. And one of the things the father was saying off camera to the little boy after he fell, he said, "Afarin." Afarin means well done. He was teaching his son to fall in love with the attempt and not to be attached to the outcome, which is what allowed the boy to try again. He was in love with the experimentation. And yeah, he celebrated at the end. I mean, I would too if I did a box jump like that. I'd be like, I'm posting it on the socials as they did, right? It's the attempt that kids are willing to embrace. And that is something that's available to us too. The joy in your play is where your courage lives. And then ultimately, what follows the joy in play and courage is where your confidence lives in your creative process. And if there are some of you in this room, the thought of exposing yourself in that way and being and publicly experimenting, that is an excellent place to live. That is an excellent sign. If you felt nothing, I would be worried. If you felt nothing, it means that you weren't trying big enough. You were playing a deliberately small game. So the bigger the game you're playing, the more you're going to feel the heebie-jeebies in there. So lean into that edge. It's beautiful. So I'm curious, and this is high stakes here. Someone's going to win the "What Would Beyoncé Do" mug for the boldest move. I'm curious, what's a bold move someone can make today, starting today, or that you're contemplating and maybe that you'll move forward with? Bueller? David?
I'll lose 25 pounds in the next 5 months.
25 pounds next 5 months. Pretty bold. Well done. I love it. I love it. Any other bold, Jen?
Speaking at public events a bit more this year. I have a goal of 6.
6. Okay. And how much will you earn as a function of speaking at these public events?
Earn monetary or?
Yeah. Are you going to be a paid speaker? Are you going to be the keynote speaker? Is this a breakout session? Is this a workout session?
I think the first is DisruptHR, so that'll be kind of testing it. So if you see me there, please don't laugh when I'm up there stumbling in my words.
I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to play with you a little bit. That is a courageous move that you're taking. So no, I'm not going to laugh at it. I'm going to applaud the fact that you have expressed a willingness to do it and you are going to do it. So can you have a round of applause for...
The other ones are just for getting out there and breaking that public speaking fear I have.
I love it. I love it. Bravo. So we have losing 25 pounds in 5 months and 6 speaking gigs this year, and she has her first one booked. Other bold move? Okay, so, oh yes, please, in the back.
Just picked up another job and decided, hey, I'm just going to move to Florida. I've always wanted to live in Florida, and here I am. So,
bravo. Congratulations on retiring. That's life goals for me. I think I'm going to be like 90 before I can retire. Yes, please.
Mine is getting published. I have been published twice so far, and every time I do it, like trying to find a source for that publication, I have such stage fright of being discovered, of someone who was part of that story, recognizing themselves in the story, and then calling me and saying, how dare you say this and how dare you say that? So it's overcoming that fear of being revealed, I think, in that level of vulnerability.
Yeah, the fear of being revealed, the idea that the emperor or empress in this case might not have any clothes on. Yeah. Ooh, I feel that one. So we have 4. So y'all are going to vote. Oh, I'm sorry. What was the next one? Did we have one here? A bold move here? Bold move? Yes.
I would say my daughter just got her license and allowing her to drive.
by herself for the first
That
time.
is, yes. I remember my parents like, that's great, honey. You just got your. Yes, yes, I understand that. I mean, they still feel that way, and I am over 50, so I totally get it. Okay, so we have wonderful, bold moves that were made. You all are going to vote. We have experiencing a second life post-retirement, getting published for the third time. We have Jen's 6 speaking engagements. We have a dad allowing his daughter to drive. And we have David's losing 25 pounds in 5 months. And y'all, I mean, this is high stakes here. Who's going to win? All right, show of hands. We'll do it this way. Show of hands, Jen's 6 speaking engagements.
They should all win.
Oh, I only have 1 mug. Okay. David's losing 25 pounds in 5 months. Being published for the 3rd time. I like that. A dad letting his 16-year-old drive. That's a good one. And then embracing your second life post-retirement. Who's a vote for that? Jen? Congratulations. Thank you for playing. That was fun. I had no idea how that was going to go. I was like, okay. So some final thoughts. Now you know that badass DNA includes the love of creative disruption and the willingness and the joy of play. Your being as a leader requires you to step into some riskier shoes. Your leadership legacy commands you to tap into whatever your flavor of badassery is. And if you're ever stumped, you can ask yourself, what would Beyoncé do?
See it.
See it. See it. See it.
Folks, it doesn't matter if you see it, if you don't step in and be it. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments? That's great. One thing for me, I feel like a lot of people don't dream big enough or think big enough. Do you see that a lot with people on this path?
So y'all heard the question. Everyone dreams big. It's the degree of permission that they will give themselves to further contemplate it is what I see as a differentiator. We all have these scarcity trolls that create excuses for why we don't do the things that we want to do. We're like, well, I'll wait until next year, or this thing has to happen first. We'll create these artificial conditions. It's not so much the doing, it's who do you choose to be as you are moving on the path to whatever you see is possible in your mind's eye. If you see yourself as someone who plays a small game, guess what? You are going to play a small game. But if you're willing to take a roll of the dice and willing to experiment and, importantly, be willing to fail, then virtually anything is available to you. And I'll add the reason why I believe this is so is my family came to this country when I was 6 months old. And my parents came from a town in the Middle East that didn't even have a stop sign. There was no indoor plumbing. There was no electricity. My father was the first one to graduate from high school. He was the first one to graduate from college. He went to medical school. He was invited to finish his medical school training here, had a very successful career in Chicago, and ended up retiring, and he splits his time with my mom between here and Chicago. That, to me, is a story that nothing is impossible, that you came from a town that had nothing in it, and somehow you found your way. And he was not only an MD, he's not only MD, he's a PhD. Like, how does someone who doesn't have that model create a life for himself like that? You see something in your mind's eye and you give yourself permission to pursue it. So thank you for allowing me to share that story. Yeah, please.
I want to say thank you for defining my style, finally. It's exactly right. This definition is spot on.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for saying so. Yeah, Jen.
In your experience, what are some encouraging words to get out of that imposter syndrome? I know you said publishing every day. I feel that's a bit extreme if I were to get out of my imposter syndrome. What are some steps to take that are easily something I can do?
So there is true and there is truth, right? So anytime there is a piece of head trash, a question you could ask is, well, how true is that? And then how true is that? And then you keep on going and exploring, and then you'll eventually figure out what the source of the troll is. And scarcity trolls they're trolls, so they're very smart and they know how to contort themselves into something that seems like a legitimate objection. But really what they are is playing with the idea of scarcity. Does that help? Yeah, how true is that is a good tool. And then the flip side to that, which I adore using, and I also ask myself this question is, how are you lying to yourself? That one, anytime I've asked a client that or a version of that, like where might not you be telling the truth, that usually gets like a, because it's true. We all find ways to lie to ourselves. How are we not telling the truth? That one's a very powerful question to ask too. Thank you.